I'm going to do a demo of the Hydra example for Nodysseus. So the first thing to note is the address. So you can get to this by going to nodysseus.code/#Hydra_example, and this should pop up this graph here, unless I change it around in the future, but it should be very similar. So the first thing to note is that there's a bunch of setup nodes here that we're not going to touch on. I will go over those later in the video, but I wanted to get to the meat of the stuff first. So you can see here that we're set up so that whenever I press Control Enter, it will run this graph right here. So at the moment we have our Hydra synth, and it's feeding into OSC with a frequency of 4. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a offset to this. I'm going to change the value by clicking undefined at the moment because it doesn't have a value. This is probably going to change in later versions, but I can change that to something like that. I don't remember the actual numbers that are good here, but there we go. Let's get some color in there. Do that, and then we can change the frequency to 8. So you'll notice at the moment that it is currently updating every time I change something. That's because I haven't yet typed anything that it registers as a key press. So if I press Control or Shift or something, you can see that this node down here changes as I press those things. And so when it's on something other than Control Enter, then when I change a value here, it won't actually change yet until I do indeed press Control Enter, then it changes. So let's make a node in here. We're going to change the reference by clicking Object to Hydra. You can see that all of these pop up as soon as I press Hydra. They're scraped from the Hydra repository. We're going to do collide because that's a cool one, and then change the number of sides to, I don't know, let's say 8. So you can see we have our graph, and then if I want to do something else, I can do like rotate. Sorry about the undefines. That's not actually very much more interesting, so I'm going to delete those nodes by pressing X. You can also click delete here. Okay, so this is where my knowledge of Hydra is going to be a bit iffy, but I believe that we can add in a init screen somewhere in here. So we have a Hydra out here, so for now we'll just add one in so that you can see what it looks like. Let's do text. It might give an error unless I change it to not run. So we can do okay, so init screen is not there, but we can press S and that brings up this script, and it will do synth.s0.init screen, and we're going to, let's not cache it for now, but we're going to make an input to this that we're going to call synth, and it's going to, so you see over here this Hydra synth is an arg. That basically means that in my setup I've set this up so that Hydra synth is passed in as an argument to everything that is after this node. So all of these things can access Hydra synth by changing the value to Hydra synth and the reference to arg. Okay. Now when we run this, it should ask if I can do this screen share. So I'll do that. It's going to ask a bunch of times, I think, actually, because it's run a few times. In order to prevent that, I'm going to come here and go cache. Basically what cache does is it will only run it after it does this once. It will only run it, it should only run it one time. Oh, because that's undefined. Whoops. Okay, I'm going to refresh the page and start again because I messed that up. You can just refresh the page and it will go back to whatever it has. If you saved it, it will go back to, it should go back to what I had before. Okay, so my input is going to be, let's get my input set up correctly. We have arg, we have Hydrasynth. We're going to change this to hydrasynth.s0.init screen, and we're going to return true. That was the thing that was missing before. So now when I cache this and press enter or control enter, it didn't do anything. Sorry, this is still very much experimental software. So what went wrong here? Okay, I'm going to add a recache node to try and figure out what went wrong. This is Hydrasynth. Okay. I'm not quite sure what went wrong there. But you get the idea. Let's say that's set up correctly, even though it obviously isn't. We can do, let's take something that has a modulates or combines two. So I think hydra.blend is a good one. And this is going to be self, which is going to be the base texture. And then I'll click this again and add in a texture. And for this, I will do hydrasynth.s0. So you can use dot notation if you're doing an arg, and it will blend the two. And yeah, that's really weird. I don't know why this is happening. Okay, but you kind of get the idea. At the moment, yeah, I have some obviously messiness. If I save and reload, it should all come back up a little bit cleaner than it was before. I just didn't like it when it was bouncing around while I was working on things. Obviously, there's a few things that I need to change. The performance isn't great right now, but I'm working on it. And yeah, otherwise this is kind of like an interface for any sort of JavaScript library, but I thought Hydra might be a good starting off point. Actually, you know what, let's try doing this instead. Let's copy that one, and for this, instead of using an arg, I'm going to change this to the script. I'll paste in what we had before, and this is going to be synth, and it's going to return synth.0. Okay, that's still not working. Okay, well, there's definitely a bug going on somewhere in there. But yeah, have a play around. Let me know what you think. I'll try and get this bug fixed, whatever that was, and kind of get an example up. Thanks for watching. Oh, I'd said I would go over the nodes over here just to kind of give an idea of possibilities. So just from the setup of the environment, this is a canvas. So we have our canvas is the DOM type, Hydra canvas is the ID, so that we can get into it with Hydra. We have our CSS, which, let me make this side a bit more, you can press contract and it should move everything down. So we have our CSS, which is going to be the Hydra canvas ID. Is going to be position fixed, left 0, width, height, it's at top and Z index. The node editor, which is like this whole thing, gets this value of background so that we can see the Hydra below it. If I change this, that did not work. There we go. So if I change that, it won't be transparent anymore. Yeah, so that's the CSS. And then we have Hydra itself. So this is a script HTML element. It's loading this all dynamically. So we have the source from unpackage, the Hydra synth unpackage. Runnable kind of just takes a section of the graph, so in this case it's this, whoops, this part, and makes a sort of function out of it, so that we can, when it's loaded, so on load, we do all of this stuff, which is again a cache. We publish, this script takes a new Hydra, and then uses like an internal event system to publish it. The internal event system works within the page with any object. You can also kind of hook it into broadcast channels, or any sort of WebSockets or any sort of communication, because it's all event-based and asynchronous, and have it send to other browser windows or other places. Okay, let's collapse this back. Where are we? Here we are. So we'll collapse this back. Some setup stuff, which is, yeah, you see this Hydra, and we have an event subscriber. So this just grabs this sets up the synth and publishes it, and then in Hydra nodes, this is what gets all of the nodes, the bindings that I've set up. So when you save it, they save with the file, just so that you can kind of send the file anywhere and it will already have them. But it does grab you can import from whatever JSON URL. At the moment it's pointed to this server, but if you have calls set up from somewhere, you can point it to wherever, or load it, I guess you could take import JSON apart and load nodes from any source you want, so you can make bindings and host them in various different places. Yeah, so that's that. I think that covers everything. Thanks for watching, and let me know if you have any questions. It would be really cool to see this once obviously some of the bugs are worked out. It would be cool to see this as like maybe a way that people who are like, I'm not a coder, could get into doing some live coding, or what? Oh, there we go. Oh, I forgot to press Control Enter. That's what was going on. Oops. Now it's going to keep on going. But anyway, you see what's going on. It can blend the old and the new, like blend the S0 as you would expect. yeah, thanks for watching.